All right, there we are. Hey, everybody, we are live. We are live for today's and this week's Tuesday tip at 2. All right, hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram. I am live streaming from both platforms currently, and I'm not going to be live streaming for both from both platforms for long. Instagram, you're gonna have to head over to YouTube. Okay, you're gonna have to come on over at DJ and Royalty, look it up, find me, subscribe, do all the things. But briefly, Instagram, I'm letting you in. But hey, YouTube family, listen, I need everybody to like, share, comment, do all the things on YouTube, on Instagram, do all the things. It is time for today's and this week's Tuesday tip at 2. All right, today's this week's Tuesday tip at 2. And today I want to talk about rent to own. I want to talk about rent to own today. It is something that actually a new subscriber had made a comment about. Bonnie87. Hi. I am making this specifically for you. I have made videos on rent to own in the past, but I wanted to come on here and talk about it currently, give an up to date video on the subject rent to own. So, if you're on Instagram and you want to know more about rent to own properties and the process, you need to head over to YouTube and come check it out. If you're watching a replay, head on over to YouTube and go ahead and check it out. All right. Thanks, me. All right. So that's that. So, YouTube family, I wanted to quickly talk about rent to own properties. Like I said, my subscriber had asked and made a comment and made reference to rent to own. And I'm going to tell you, I am, of course, for those who don't know, Danielle J. Mitchell, a PA licensed realtor, and I service the Philadelphia and surrounding suburbs. Okay. And let me tell you, as Danielle J. Mitchell, who services PA, particularly Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs, I'm not an advocate for rent to own. I'm not an advocate. All right. So I have been asked about it in the past. It's not the first comment I received about it, message or, inquiry about rent to own. So if you've been scrolling on Zillow and dreaming about home ownership, but you're worried about credit down payments, getting mortgage ready, then this live is for you. If you want to know more about what it looks like and what it means to rent to own, let's talk about it. Grab your notebook, hit the like button, drop your comments, your questions in the chat, and I'll answer them as we go. So, what is rent to own? Let's talk about this idea and this concept. Let's start with the basics. It's an agreement where you rent a home for a period of time with the option or sometimes the obligations to buy it later. Okay. You'll typically pay a higher monthly rent as a part of the proceeds that go towards your future down payment. All right. So say you're renting out a property and it's for $1,200, they'll maybe require you to pay $1,800 or $1,600, and that accumulative excess money goes towards your down payment. There's often called an option fee, which is an upfront money that locks you in to the right to buy that home later. All right. But here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing. Not all rent to own deals are created equal. All right. So let's talk about the pros and cons of rent to own and why I lean more on the con side. Because most of them, many of them, not all, but many of them are cons, okay, and on the con side. So let's talk about the pros. You build towards, and this is why people love when they see it, when they heard about it, this is what they're thinking in their mind, why it would be beneficial. So some pros are build towards home ownership while living in the home. You can lock in today's price before values rise hopefully. You can, lock it in at whatever that specified market value or whatever that landlord or owner wants to sell it to you for. And you get time to improve your credit so you can actually get a mortgage and as well as your savings, right? So it's almost like you're saving simultaneously because that one portion is using for the rent, the other portion is being stored away, hopefully, maybe in an escrow account, maybe in a high yielding account by whoever is receiving those net funds. Um, Hopefully that money is being stored away, and then you are simultaneously working on your credit. So the cons, not comms, but cons. You may lose your option fee if you do not buy. You're responsible for maintenance in many cases. If you miss a payment, the deal can fall through. A lot of the times, people who actually have an agreement, if they have one, because that's the other thing about the con side, is that many people do a handshake deal when it comes to rent to own and do not sign paperwork. That's a problem. And so, if you actually do happen to sign paperwork for something like this, one of the caveats and one of the clauses in an agreement is if you miss a payment, then the deal is off. If you're late on rent, if you miss a rent payment, then it decreases your chance. And this could have been after several months, after a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, that it automatically voids your rent to own agreement. Okay. These are, for some people, they may actually give you a real contract, and you need to understand what you're signing because it is not a regular rental. Okay. So in PA, especially in places like Philly, Upper Darby, surrounding suburbs, rent to own options exist, but they're not always easy to find. They are run by some investors, some by small startup companies and back programs. Make sure all contracts spell out the purchase price and terms. Get inspections if you want to purchase, and work with a realtor or attorney to protect your interests. I would caution on the side of an attorney. Get an attorney. Realtors, we can't really do much for you. Be honest. We can't really do much for you because guess what? The laws protect tenants or homeowners. All right. A transaction protects a buyer and a seller in a traditional transaction. It does not protect somebody who's in this in between ambiguous state. All right. So it will behoove you to get a real estate attorney, some form of an attorney who can actually give you clear documents, give you clear clauses, dates, all these different things. All right. So if you were to do that, to be honest, I don't even think PA really recognizes, again, from a lawful standpoint, rent to own properties, transactions, because everything costs, again, on the side of tenant, or you're an owner, or you're a buyer, you're a seller. Okay. So trust me, you don't want to skip paperwork if you do enter into something like this because you're so excited. In my own personal experience, I've definitely heard of this idea from private investors and people who will give their longtime tenants an option to buy. And they will work around certain deals and stuff like that. And it has worked in their favor, and it actually works out for them. They're just like, hey, if you go ahead and get a mortgage, then, we can put something towards it, or we can give you seller's assist, or waive some of the costs or something like that, or help you, or give it to you with below market value. It can work out. But what I'm saying to you is it is not ideal. Okay. It is not ideal. And so if you were to go into something like this, somebody is telling you that they can do this for you, get an attorney. Know what you're reading, know what the terms are, know what the conditions are. Who should consider rent to own? It might work out for you. I'm going to say if you know the person, if you know the tenant, if you've been in that house, you enjoy that house, you love that house, it could work out. Okay. because of the credit score situation, because maybe the income. So you need to have at least 2 years of working history, and maybe you had some breaks in between, and so but you're really trying to get the house, or you like the house that you're currently in, and you want to live, and you're currently living in your future home, and you want to buy that you are the one that you are in. But if you're already mortgage ready or close to it, rent to own might cost you more than buying now. That's where strategy comes in, and talking to somebody like myself before you decide, because I recognize that landlords can offer this. So, what are some alternatives to rent to own? Okay, other options include, of course, an FHA loan, NACA, VA loans that helps with, that have low down payments, that helps with closing costs. Of course, first time home buyer grants. Of course, seller's credit or seller's financing. Sometimes you think you need to rent to own, but really you're probably just not far off from being able to secure the house that you're interested in. Another thing is, if you are one who is on Section 8 PHA housing, okay, you have potentially the option to do a rent to own scenario or buy the current house that you live in, as long as your landlord is okay with it. They have an actual program to be able to buy the house that you're currently living in if you are using Section 8 or PHA housing voucher. Okay, if you're in that program also, whether you're trying to buy the one you're currently in or buy something else, they have programs for you. And so that's the other thing I want to stress too, is that they have a real life rent to own option in that program. There was another program that was in PA, that was in Philly. I think it was called Landis, and I did a video on it actually. And that program moved out of Philly again, because the way PA is, we don't necessarily have concrete laws for specifically for people who are trying to do rent to own. All right, so there's that. Now, if you're in Pennsylvania, especially in the Philadelphia and surrounding suburbs, and you're serious about buying, but you need guidance on the rent to own or buying options, you need to do what? You need to go to book.dgonrealtyco.com, okay, and schedule a buyer consultation or a real estate powwow. You can also, reach out to me on the social media streets, whether Instagram, TikTok, all the things. Of course, at DJ Realty. Of course, you can certainly comment below. And I do respond, just like I responded to the amazing subscriber Body 87 who commented earlier today. So that's why I made this post, or this long form video talking about rent to own, because they commented and mentioned it. So I wanted to do it off the heels of that. And so I do respond to comments. I do take what you guys say to me, and I want to make sure that I'm servicing you and the content that you want to hear. So if you want to see other videos about different subjects, please comment, okay? Don't forget to hit like, share with a family, a friend. Drop any final questions if you have them, and I'll be happy to answer them. But that's all I have for today and this week's Tuesday tip at 2. I hope it was helpful to you, understanding rent to own. If you hear family members, friends, anybody talking about this subject, please shoot them over this video so they have a better idea of what it entails and what it means, and making sure that they're not being taken advantage of, because that's more of what you hear than anything else when people are trying to use this rent to own thing. You hear about people being taken advantage of and ultimately not getting to the place and the goal that they were hoping to get to, right? And so we don't want that. Okay. Remember, drop a comment, like, subscribe, do all the things, and I will talk to you guys soon and again. Bye.